Good morning, everyone. It's Kathy Champion, and you're back in here in my craft room at Random Acts of Stamping. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I want to show you how to make a beautiful fall card. This is the card that we're going to make. Isn't that beautiful? I think it screams fall. Look at the detail. It is just absolutely beautiful. And I carried the theme of this flower, and I'm going to show you how I did that as we get started. So this is the card. Hopefully our final product is going to look just as beautiful as this one. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to go over our pieces. I've already pre-cut them for the sake of the video because nobody wants to sit through 2 hours of watching someone make a card. So I try to condense it down a little bit. For our message, we're going to need these two pieces. Your terracotta, and the color that I picked was the terracotta cardstock. This is 1 inch by 2 1/4. And then the piece that's going to mat over it, that's going to carry our message, is 3/4 by 2. So those are going to go together, and we're going to stamp our message right there on that, and then center it, and it's going to be a beautiful little border. So I'm going to lay that over here. The next piece you're going to need is a 3 3/4 by 2 1/4, and this is what's going to carry our little wheelbarrow. And then you're going to have this mat behind it, and this is going to measure at 2 1/2 by 4. And all these measurements are going to be in the description box below. If you go to the bottom of the video, and you'll see where it says show more, or either if you're on your phone or tablet, there's just like a little arrow that drops down. Just click on that arrow and it will drop down and show you. And then if you scroll all the way down, if you're on a phone or a tablet, you can leave me a comment right there, and comments are so welcome. This piece right here is a standard mat for an A2 size card, so we know that that's 5 1/4 by 4. So very simple. And then we have another piece that we're going to use on the inside that is the same measurements. It's going to be 4 by 5 1/4. So that's going to go on the inside. And then we have a card base, and this is basically a half a sheet of 8 1/2 by 11. So this is going to measure 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and we're going to score it at 4 1/4. And then, like I said, this is going to be the mat that lives on the inside. We're also going to do another mat inside. So we have some white, and we'll measure that and cut that in a minute. But right now, let's go ahead and start working on our pieces that's going to go on the front. So we need a piece of white cardstock. Yeah, we're going to use this one. We are going to need to stamp out our flowers, our pumpkin, and our wheelbarrow. So I am going to use I think the soft suede for the wheelbarrow, and then the flowers, we're going to stamp them just using the Memento Black. So let's do the flowers first. And because I'm going to use alcohol markers, I'm choosing the Memento ink. So let's ink this up. And I want to stamp where I can get as many pieces on here as I possibly can. So maybe we'll go this way. Very, very pretty. All right, I am going to use my Stampin' Scrub in between just to clean up my stamps a little bit. Alright, so we have that stamped. I'm going to leave this because we're going to be doing some more stamping with that. The other thing that we want to stamp is our wheelbarrow. But I'm going to do that in soft suede. So let's put that up. And of course I got ink on me. Y'all know I never touch an ink pad without wearing it. I don't want to take a chance of getting ink on my cardstock, so I'm just going to use a little alcohol wipe and wipe my hands pretty well. Okay, so now we're going to use the soft suede, and we are going to stamp Wheelbarrow. And since I've got a larger block, I think I'm going to bring the stamp pad to the stamp. So we're going to do it like this. And I'm going to stamp this right about here. I'm trying to leave enough room between them to be able to die cut. Because the beauty of these stamps is everything comes with a die. Oh, that's pretty. Clean up my stamp. And now we need to do our pumpkins, and I'm going to do them also in the black. So let's, because we're going to color those pumpkins up and make them look very fall, and nothing screams fall like pumpkins. So let's get the Memento. I'm going to turn this and see if I can get it right here. Very good. Alright, so we have all of those things that we're going to need to color and cut out. And I am going to use my Stampin' Blends for my flowers. So I am going to grab the lightest color of Mango Melody. That's a beautiful yellow, and it's more fall than spring, so that's why I chose that. I'm going to get I don't think I want Mossy Meadow. I need something a little bit lighter. So let's grab the Old Olive, the light and the dark. We're going to need some Pumpkin Pie, both light and dark. And I'm going to start out with my flowers. So I'm going to actually use the other end, not the brush tip, but the nib. This one right here, because this is very tiny, very intricate, and we need to be able to get in there and color just what we want. So I'm just going to lay down some color. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just like that. And this is another one of those flowers. So I'm going to just put some color in. We'll go back and blend and do some other stuff. But I basically want to get color into the, I think the dark Rococo Rose would be pretty on these flowers. It's a muted color, and we always think of fall colors being a little muted. So I'm going to do this pretty rose in this Rococo Rose. And this is the dark. Very pretty. And then we got another one of those right there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one as well. And in the process, I saw a leaf on this yellow flower that I missed. Just take your time and enjoy the process when you're coloring. It makes It just makes everything much prettier. So I'm going to get some Calypso Coral. Let's see, Calypso Coral would be this one. And I'm going to start out with the white. We got two more flowers on here before we move on to our greenery. One is right here. And they almost look like little tulips, but I don't think of tulips as being a fall flower. But it's okay. So that just puts another little depth of color in there that's a little different from everything else. Now I'm going to come in with my pumpkin pie, and I'm going to put this beautiful center like that. Now we need to do some greenery, but I also want to use the shaded spruce. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the light old olive, and I'm just going to, some of these little green pieces that are kind of up and down, I'm going to go in and just lay a little bit of this old olive, the light old olive, down. And go through the veins on these leaves. And I think it's nice to have some different shades of green. That looks like that might be a little flower, so I think I'm going to go back with the light Rococo Rose. And we're going to make this a flower. So, you know, whenever you're coloring, make it yours. Not everybody has the same vision in their head, and that's what makes crafting so individual. So, you know, get in there and play and just have fun. And see what I mean about this being easy to use, because you're able to go in. So I'm going to go back now with my dark, and I am going to go over the lines with the dark. Some of the leaves I'm just going to color them straight up the darker. And then the ones that I need to blend, I'm going to go back in with the lighter. And put down a little bit of color for shading. I think we're done with those. So now the light shaded spruce. And come down and put a little bit of color here. And see how just putting in a different shade of green really brings this to life. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go off camera. I showed you a little bit how I'm going to do this. I'm going to color the pumpkins, finish coloring those, and get these, use the die cuts to get these cut out. And we do have the die cuts. In the Autumn Goodness, we also have Autumn Wheelbarrow. And the Autumn Wheelbarrow dies comes, of course, with the little piece that will cut the wheelbarrow out. And it will also cut our flowers out. And our pumpkin, our little pumpkins. So we're going to use all of those, and we're also going to cut a wheel, and I'm going to use a copper colored cardstock like this to cut that out with. So when you get back, we'll have all this colored, and we will be ready to go on with our other stamping. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we're back, and I have gotten all of this colored and cut along with our wheel that we cut out of that pretty copper paper. So I'm going to move these over with my card pieces, because we're going to do some stamping. Now I am going to bring over this mat. I probably should have used it when I was stamping a while ago, but I totally forgot. We're going to use a terracotta. And we are going to, looking back at our pieces, here's our card pieces, we are going to stamp on this piece right here first. Now I'm going to be stamping on and off, so because of that, I am going to use this piece of cardstock just to protect my mat. As you can see, I used it when I made the original card, so let's try this and see what we get. All right, we need the flowers. So this is what I'm going to stamp around the border of this piece, because we're going to have the other piece sitting in the middle. So we don't need to stamp all over the piece. We're just going to stamp like maybe here. And look how pretty that looks. That's that tone on tone, and I think it's so, so pretty. So I'm going to kind of bump this up the side of it and stamp. And I'm going to come down on this side, and I think I'm going to kind of do a little bit of an angle like that. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. You just do you. And just get a nice border. And you can turn your stamp different directions and position it like you want it. And I do want this right here to have a little color, so I'm just going to go in like that and get that corner. And that's all we need to do to this piece. Clean up my stamp a little bit. And now we're going to lay this over to the side. And the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and get our pieces adhered. So while that is drying, I'm going to bring over this piece right here, and we're going to lay the pumpkins to the side because we're going to be working with the wheelbarrow and the flowers. So what I want to do is I want to glue those flowers on the top of the wheelbarrow, something like that. So what I'm going to do that is I'm just going to run a little glue right along here, just like that, and then I'm just going to sit the flowers into the glue. Okay, the other thing we're going to need to do is adhere our wheel to the wheelbarrow. So I'm going to use a mini glue dot to do this, and I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. This thing comes in so handy for so many things. If you get one of these, you will not regret it. Okay, rolling that up into a little ball. And the reason I'm doing that is I want it to fit. So now I'm just going to lift it up with my Take Your Pick tool. I'm going to turn over my little wheel, and I want that glue dot to live right there in the middle of those spokes. Now this is ready to glue to our wheelbarrow. So I'm just going to come right there in the middle, and I'm going to mash that down. So that's how easy it was to put this together, and look how pretty it looks on this white paper. So I'm going to turn it at an angle because wheelbarrows usually are slanted just slightly. So I want that to live about like that. But I want to pop this up. So let's get some Stampin' Dimensionals. Alright, so I am going to take off several of these. And I'm going to start putting them down. I want them to be kind of evenly distributed. I think I'm going to use one more right here. And I might grab a couple of the minis. Alright, the minis are very tiny, so they work out great when you need one to go like right there, and maybe one right there. Okay. And I think I'm going to put one more right here, just to even everything out. So I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool to wrangle these off. Look how easy that is. And you know the beauty of this, once you get these all off, you can just take this and pick all of these up in one shot and put them in the trash. Alright, so this is ready to adhere. So, like I said, I want it to be just a little bit at an angle, about like that. And now you got that beautiful dimension of that sitting up. Isn't that pretty? So then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this piece on to this terracotta. So we're just going to put this on as a mat, a decorative mat. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put just some liquid glue using my Tombow. And I'm going to put this on using a technique that works good for me. I'm going to get that border straight top and bottom and on the side here. Then when I drop that down, it's going to be perfect all the way across. Now there's that mat. Now the next thing we need to do is grab our piece that we stamped. And let's see if this is going to cover it. We're going to need to do a little bit more stamping right here. Not a problem. Oops, wrong one. Where is my floral? Right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ink up the top part of it. And I'm going to come in and stamp it right about there. I think that'll work because I think see what I did? I set that down in the ink. That's okay. We can turn this over and we can do it again. So I wasn't real pleased with the way that one turned out anyway. So let's clean up our ink block so we don't have ink in places we didn't want it. And let's try this again. I'm going to move that out of my way. I'm going to grab my little mat again, along with my piece of scrap paper. And let's go in. See, I got ink on that again, but that's okay. I'm just going to take a wipe and wipe that line of ink off. And we are going to stamp about like that. I'm going to allow myself to come in a little bit more to give me just a little more depth. This is the beauty of doing artwork. You know, you can, if you mess up, turn your paper over and just, you know, redo it. Mistakes happen. None of us are perfect. And we just do a do-over. That's the good thing. We can always have a do-over in paper crafting because it's just paper. I like that one much better. That looks more uniformed. We still might need a little bit right there, but you know what? Let's put that down, and then we'll see how our piece fits over it. Oh yeah, that covers good. Alright, so we're good. This piece is all good to go. And we didn't waste paper. That's always a good thing. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to pop this whole piece up like that, because that's going to give us a whole lot more dimension. So I am going to go back in and grab my Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to put one on each corner. And then I think we'll do one in the middle, and maybe one at the top and one at the bottom. And I think that's probably going to be sufficient to hold this in place. So let's wrangle our little backers. Now see, that was a good one. I got them all wrangled. I can take them right off of that and put them in the trash, and all of our stickies are exposed. Alright, so now what we're going to do is just sit this down, and I'm going to do an eyeball center. Something like that. And that looks really pretty. So now we are ready to put this onto our card base. We still need to do our pumpkins, but we're gonna get to that. Here's our pumpkins, and I want them to sit up. So what I'm going to do is probably use double dimensions on the back of those. So anytime you want something to sit up higher than the piece under it, just double your dimensions. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to do them up there at the top. I just need them here at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and take the backers off of these. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some more dimensions on top of these. Now this is a little more tedious because you want to make sure you get them exactly on top. So you're just matching up your little sides. And what this allows your piece to do is to live very well over top of another piece. Just be careful when you're putting them down. It's not that hard. You just want to get them on there as straight and as even as you possibly can. So we're going to go back and pull off our backers one more time. And now these are going to live right about here on our card. So let's bring that over. Yep, I think right about there is where I want those to live. And see how pretty that looks? And now they're sitting up in front of the wheelbarrow, which is lifted. This piece is lifted, and these pumpkins are going to live there and look very dimensional. See how pretty that card is? I love that. So now what we need to do is go ahead and adhere this piece to our card front. And I'm going to use my Tombow liquid glue for this. Oops, I dropped glue. It's okay. Using that same technique, I'm going to get it even on both sides, top and bottom on one side, and then drop it. So pretty. Alright, so now what we need to do is put this piece down. And I am going to do the same thing with this piece. We're going to do some stamping around the edges because we want it to be cohesive. Put my top back on my glue. And let's bring our ink back out with our pretty flowers. And again, we are just going to do the same thing we did a while ago. We're going to stamp flowers. These flowers are so pretty. They look so fall. Stampin' Up! Always does such a beautiful job in designing their stamps. And again, the quality, oh my goodness. They are absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so we're working this around. Again, we're doing the same thing, just all the way around. Just like that. Now what we're going to need to do is make us some mat to go over this, and I want it to be a little bit less because I want as much of this to show as we possibly can. So let me measure what size mat I used. So it is 3.5. By 4 3/4. So I'm going to lay this over here so it can dry. Okay, 4 3/4 by 3.5, so this is our 3.5 piece. And this should give us the piece that we need for the inside. But we're not done stamping. So let's bring this back over along with our piece here. And we're going to stamp in this corner and this corner this little flower. So let's ink him up again in the terracotta. And let's stamp here. Pretty. And then I'm going to turn the stamp upside down and I'm going to stamp right here. Isn't that pretty? So, so pretty. I'm going to bring this piece back over because I need to the stamp's going to need a good cleaning after everything is done and said. Now I'm going to move that piece out of my way and we are going to stamp our sentiment in the middle. And for this one, I am going to use this one right here that says Golden Leaves, Chilly Air, Autumn Beauty Everywhere. And I'm going to stamp it right in the middle, and I'm also going to use the terracotta. Very pretty. Okay, so now we have one more piece that we need to stamp and put together, and this is the little piece for the front of our card. And this one is going to say Plant Kindness, Harvest Love. I want to get right over top of this so that I can get it right in the middle. Didn't quite get in the middle. It's okay. We can always restamp. Okay, that's a little far up to the top, but that's okay. If you don't get your stamping perfect where you want it, you can always trim your paper, especially if you're dealing with a short piece like this. So I'm just going to take my scissors and I am going to trim off about 1/4 of an inch. So that means we're going to trim this one about the same amount, about 1/4 of an inch. You can put that back in your trimmer. It was just quicker and easier for me just to do that. So now we're gonna put this on here, and I am going to use a little bit of Tombow. And then we're just going to glue this down just like that. Okay, now we need to adhere this to this. Again, I'm just going to use some glue. Isn't that gorgeous? So now let's bring our card back over and we're ready to put this inside. And then the only thing left to do is to glue our sentiment on the outside. And this card is done. So again, I'm doing that same technique. Side, top, and bottom. Just like that. Now all we're going to do is put this right about here So instead of putting glue on this, I'm going to put glue right here. So I only want that to adhere right there at the top. And look how pretty. And let's look at them and see how close we got these to being the same after I close up my glue and my ink pad. Now, you know, anytime you try to replicate a card, there's always going to be a little bit of difference. I don't know if we can really tell it. This one looks like it's angled a little bit different, and we did cut this one off, and I did stamp this in black, and I stamped this in the terracotta. So there is mild differences, but not a lot. I love both of these cards. I think they both turned out gorgeous. I did stamp this up a little higher to give me room here to sign, but they're both lovely cards. So if you enjoyed watching me make this card, if you're interested in picking up any of the supplies that I used, everything will be listed in the description box below. All the measurements, everything to make this card yours. So again, I just thank you so much for tuning in. I thank you for your love and your support. And I always tell you to show kindness to someone. Let somebody know today that they're important. We're living in times that are so disturbing, I think is the only word that we can say. Between the pandemic, the racial unrest, the rioting in the streets, hatred is everywhere. So let's try to show love. Let your love shine out to your fellow man, and give praise to God. He's so worthy. I always say in closing, let everything you do and say bring glory to our Father in heaven. He is worthy. Until we craft again, God bless and keep you. Bye-bye.